All right, the next concept, and these, like I said, these are basic principles, so they will undergird and support all the other things that we're going to be looking at in specifics in each of the sense modalities. But the next thing we want to spend a little time talking about is sensory adaptation, because essentially the key word to write down and take note of in the bottom-up process, all right? And that's really what we're talking about here is bottom-up. It's senses and stimulation. The key concept that is worth keeping in mind is the concept or word novelty. We scan our environment, and we are the most interested in things that change. And that's what I mean by novelty. Anything that changes is where our attention will be pointed. Now remember, I talked about whether or not attention is part of sensory adaptation, whether it's a spotlight or whether it's a flooding of an entire area like this, versus a spotlight which is very focused on a specific area. Novelty, it drives our sensory apparatus. We look for change, particularly specifically, I should stop talking when I'm trying to spell something, is specifically when it comes to meaningful information. So it's not just any information, it's meaningful information that is key. And what if you're going to define sensory adaptation, what we're actually talking about here is a diminished sensitivity to constant stimulation. So it's diminished sensitivity. What you see down here in this picture is where the eyes scan when they're taking in an entire picture, and they move from one point to another point. Our eyes are constantly on the move, even though we don't know that they are. And that reduces, at least in our eyesight, it reduces the sensory adaptation. We're processing an entire picture because our eyes are constantly on the move. Constant unchanging images on the eye fade and then reappear. And essentially, the phenomenon of sensory adaptation allows us to really focus our attention on the things that matter the most. So the key to understand here is we perceive the world not as it is, but as it is useful to us to perceive. And so when we're put into a meaningful situation, or at least we assume it's meaningful, we begin to scan the entire environment to understand it in a consistent way. There's a picture in your book of an experiment they did where they managed to put a particular picture in front of somebody's eyes so they couldn't move. Wherever the eye moved, the image moved. And like I said, one of the aspects of this is a continual refreshing of the visual field, and we call it saccadic movement, in order for us to detect differences. But in the experiment, they made it so it was impossible for that to be done. And essentially what you see in the book is what the person actually ended up seeing. The image would appear, disappear, and then reappear again, and that's part of it. Another aspect that comes along with this and really drives along our perception is something that is part of almost everything we do. It's called perceptual set. And this demonstrates how expectations play into our perception, which when I say expectation, I want you to always be thinking of the psych aspects, the psychological aspects of it, but expectations impact what we see. And when we have a certain expectation, we will tend to not see other things. Now, let me turn my attention real quickly and turn your attention to Perceptual Set and pull up another picture here just to demonstrate the whole idea behind it all. Now, I'm sure you've probably seen the picture in your book of the guy holding a saxophone versus the woman's face. And the impact, once we start seeing one thing, it's hard to see another. And that's part of what we refer to as perceptual set. The same thing is true and demonstrated by the cartoon to your right, is that seeing a traffic cop on a motorcycle holding something in his hand, if you're on the highway, you will see a flurry of red taillights, people hitting the brakes, slowing down because they're sure that they are being, the radar gun is getting pointed at them. Now, the key concept or the key thing to keep in mind when we're talking about perceptual set is that that perception is driven by experience. And like I said, perceptual set is a good example of that. The funny part about it is that if the traffic cop was actually holding a hairdryer, nobody would probably know the difference, and nobody would probably even look closely about that. It would have a dramatic influence on the speed limit around that experience. Now, how do we define this experience? And usually, it's assumptions based on contextual cues that drive that along. There's also the whole idea of beliefs, what I believe to be true about a particular situation. So these things are what define this experience and impact what we quote-unquote see. What I want you to see is that when we say I see something, that doesn't mean that we are sensing it in a particular way. It means we are probably perceiving it in a particular way because of the nature of our assumptions, beliefs, and expectations. And that's quite important, really, to do that, to understand, because perceptual set lives on over and over again, including pictures like the Loch Ness Monster, which is in your book as well. And the connecting point here is what we have as, which Jean Piaget talked about, as schemas. They organize and interpret information for us, and there are certain things that impact what we see, and it isn't just sensing it. If someone were to say, look at that traffic cop and what do you see, at first glance we would probably not even see the hairdryer. The same thing is true when people interpret unfamiliar information or interpret unfamiliar situations. We have certain expectations. For example, when people go to Loch Ness in Scotland, they expect to see certain things, namely the Loch Ness Monster. That's why everybody goes there, as they go there with cameras and binoculars in hand, hoping to catch a glimpse of a quote-unquote a sea serpent. Well, if you're looking for something, you're sure to find it, is really what the key is here when we're talking about perceptual set. If you go into an exam expecting to fail it, then the first item you see that is one that you don't know will begin to create a perceptual set, and you might see that. Another classic example, although that it doesn't necessarily purely fit into the perceptual set idea, is what happens to teams when one member that they all bank on doesn't do well, has very bad falls, for example. You saw that in gymnastics this summer with the Russian team. One kind of stable force in the Russian team had a number of significant faults, and after that the other team members did it as well, and that's a good example of how powerful perceptual set can be. And so and it really demonstrates what we just finished talking about, is top-down processing and how it impacts our bottom-up processing because of the concepts we use. As a matter of fact, it interferes with the bottom-up processing and makes it so that we can't process it as it is. Instead, we process it with the concepts that we come to it with, preconceived notions, etc. And this is just stimuli rather than concepts, if you're dividing these up.